All right, so you can see that we've divvied up our team. We've got crews on the high side of the track line or the upriver side of the track line operating the ferry line. We have the river up and river down reeve line on the downriver side of the track line. On the far side of the bank, we've also established a ferry line. Everything's been deployed across. The boat attachments are being made. We're utilizing a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage on the nose of the boat to eliminate any haul lanes on the banks. Anytime you can eliminate haul lanes and just utilize manpower, you're going to be a lot faster and a lot more efficient with your movable control point operations. Okay, the last facet to get implemented is a big team briefing. Make sure that everybody involved in the operation for the movable control point understands the verbal sequences and the command verbiage to operate this system. If you use different colored ropes for each ferry line and for your river up and down line, that's going to make it a little bit more simplistic or a little easier to be able to verbally convey what you want done and how you want it done. Whatever sequence you come up with, clearly communicate it to the team. Make sure that everybody understands that when we want to come to the near bank, that the near bank team is going to be hauling on the ferry line and the far bank team is going to be playing out the ferry line. The exact opposite when we're going towards the far bank. Additionally, the river up and down line or that reeving line has got to play out slack when we're ferrying across the river or away from that hub. And when we're coming back towards the bank where that hub is developed, they've got to take up slack. When we stop and we want to deploy downriver or upriver, then both ferry lines stop and the river up and down line is either hauling or deploying. So make sure that all that gets ironed out. It's well communicated, you got a well organized plan, and then go into your sequence of events for communications. You also need to consider distance between far bank and near bank. If you've spread out your control points like that, you need to have additional hand signals so that those crews can understand what you want done if you're not working off of radios or verbal sequences. Okay, so this group's going into operational mode. We've got the ferry line established, everything's all built, and they've utilized a unique communication system that's going to work for them. So they used the names of the individuals on each bank to identify those banks. So they've got Andy Bank and Joe Bank, and they're utilizing that nomenclature to determine who they want to haul and who they want to give slack. Okay. So they got into the position they wanted to be in. They've released their static keeper or their keeper line that attached the nose of the boat to the track line. So that safety element is off. They're now ready to deploy downriver. So the river up and down line is playing out slack through the mechanical advantage system, the 2-to-1 on the nose of the boat, and the boat's deploying down towards the river. Okay, so they've captured the victim. They're now going to utilize their upriver haul, and they're going to bring the boat back all the way up to the track line. You can traverse it and do a ferry additionally while you're hauling up. It just increases the magnitude of the risk a little bit. We like to try and get our boats all the way back up to the track line where we can put that safety keeper on. Then we're navigating on the track line with an additional component in it. But if you encounter a hazard or that victim's got to get to the bank right away and you've done a lengthy deployment downriver, as long as you have receiving crews on the bank, you can just ferry that whole system over in the position it's in. Okay, so one of the first upgrade options for the movable control point or an alternative option is to redirect your ferry line so that all your control points are on one bank. That requires that you ferry across the track line, put a progress capture device on the track line with a directional pulley, and then redirect the ferry line that would have gone to that bank back over to this bank. Typically speaking, you could space those out on this control bank again so that everybody's not clustered up in one area. That ferry line can very easily go upriver from the track line and from the other ferry control point. So if you were looking at a bird's eye view of your control bank, you would have the lower haul or upriver and downriver control team. You'd have the track line. You'd have the ferry line to bring the boat to this bank. Then you'd have the ferry line control point to bring the boat over to the opposite control point. When you rig in that directional, make sure that you rig it in far enough across the track line that you can navigate the craft all the way over to your objective. So if we're only working in the near half of the river, you only need to deploy that directional just beyond that half point. If you need to go far across the river, then obviously you have to take that progress capture and develop and directional component all the way over towards that bank.